Coming up today, the United States slaps further sanctions on North Korea for its ballistic missile launches, weapons proliferation and other illicit activity. South Korea's rival parties remain divided over which pending bills to pass before the regular parliamentary session ends this Wednesday. Plus, 3 illegal immigrants with Indonesian nationality have been deported from Korea for apparently following a terror group affiliated with Al-Qaeda. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Wednesday, December 9th, here in Seoul. Thank you ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this morning, the United States has imposed a new round of financial sanctions on North Korea's rocket force and other entities for weapons proliferation that threatens international peace and security. The U.S. Treasury Department said in a statement Tuesday that it sanctioned the strategic rocket force of the Korean People's Army for conducting multiple ballistic missile launches in 2014. The department also blacklisted 3 North Korean shipping companies and 6 banking representatives for being involved in other illicit activities without giving any further details. The measures are largely symbolic, however, as those sanctions are not believed to be holding any assets in the U.S. or engaged in any dealings with people or companies in the U.S. Similar economic sanctions were slapped on North Korean government agencies and senior officials in January this year in retaliation for the country's role in hacking Sony Pictures. President Park Geun-hye is urging lawmakers to swiftly pass a handful of bills aimed at improving the lives of ordinary people. The list includes bills related to the economy, as well as one on preventing terrorism. Hwang Sang-hee has this report.
President Park has called for swift parliamentary approval of an anti-terrorism bill, saying it's the only way to prevent terrorism in South Korea. At a cabinet meeting on Tuesday, President Park noted that Seoul cannot fully cooperate with the international community nor exchange intelligence on terrorism without a basic law on the books.
앞으로 상상하기 힘든 테러로 우리 국민들이 피해를 입게 되었을 때 그 책임이 국회에도 있다는 사실을 분명히 말씀드리고 국민들이 그 책임을 물을 것입니다.
Following last month's deadly terror attacks in Paris, South Korea's rival parties agreed to begin discussions on passage of the anti-terrorism bill. The country is no safe haven when it comes to terrorism. An Indonesian citizen with a forged passport was recently arrested for possible connections to a terrorist group affiliated with Al-Qaeda. At the same meeting, President Park urged rival parties to put aside their differences and pass a handful of economy-related bills, including ones on job creation and labor reform. The president warned that lawmakers must act in line with their words to meet the public's expectations.
국회가 말로는 일자리 창출을 외치면서도 행동은 정반대로 노동개혁 입법을 무산시킨다면 국민의 열망은 실망과 분노가 되어 되돌아올 것입니다.
With the regular parliamentary session set to end on Wednesday, other bills awaiting the National Assembly's endorsement include one aimed at improving the service sector and another that addresses North Korea's dire human rights situation. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Now, as a follow-up to that report, Korea's rival parties now have just a single day left to pass pending bills before the parliamentary session ends later on this Wednesday. But the two sides are, as we just heard, struggling to reach a compromise. For more on what's holding them up, Park Ji-won reports.
The deputy floor leaders of the 2 main rebel parties met for talks Tuesday morning, aiming to legislate the bills each party hopes to pass. But they came away empty-handed. The ruling Saenuri Party wants to pass several economy-related bills, such as an act on promoting the service industry, a bill that makes M&As easier, and a counter-terrorism act. The Conservative Party pressed the opposition camp for cooperation, accusing it of deliberately delaying discussions on the bills in committee, and urged lawmakers to be more responsible to its legislative duties.
It's very frustrating to see that all the urgent bills for improving the livelihoods of the people, which both parties agreed to pass within this session, haven't been discussed yet.
The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy Party, which is also pushing for passage of a number of bills, including one aimed at improving cooperation between conglomerates and small and medium-sized companies, said the economy-related bills promoted by the ruling bloc do not reflect the interests and demands of ordinary people and the middle class. The Liberal Party accused the presidential office of pressuring the parliament, saying the parliament belongs to people, not to the president. The party also expressed their opposition to labor-related bills. The party emphasized that a previous agreement made on December 2nd, under which party leaders had agreed to pass labor reform bills during the next extraordinary session, was based on an existing bipartisan agreement. And as long as the conditions for the original agreement are not met, the party can never accept the bills.
We say once again that the party can never accept the passage of the 5 labor reform bills that ruling party and the government are pushing, as they are unjust laws and will only create more irregular positions.
Meanwhile, the ruling party unilaterally submitted a request to convene an extraordinary session on Thursday, right after the regular session ends on Wednesday. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Now, 3 illegal immigrants with suspected ties to an extremist Islamic terror group have been deported from Korea. The move comes amid heightened awareness and concerns following the recent terror attacks in Paris. Song Ji-son reports.
3 illegal immigrants with Indonesian nationality have been deported, while a 4th one is being questioned for supporting terrorist group. Korea's spy agency said Tuesday that a 32-year-old Indonesian man was deported last week for violating country's Immigration Control Act. The man, whose identity was not released, was found to support al-Nusra, an al-Qaeda affiliate, and wanted to get involved in jihad. He raised funds for Islamist fighters through a bank account and posted on his Facebook page that he would carry out a suicide bombing attack. Another 32-year-old Indonesian in Chungcheongnam-do province is being questioned by police for possessing a mock M16 rifle and a Bowie knife. He entered the country with a fake passport. In his SNS account, this man vowed to die a martyr, willing to participate in the Syrian war next year. His 2 Indonesian friends, who were also supporters of the same terror group, were deported last month. One of them had been telling people he will die fighting against the U.S. and Russia. Police have revved up investigation on illegal immigrants, but currently there is no law against scheming attacks except for deportation for possessing illegal weapons. Amidst Islamic extremist terror threats spreading around the world, Korean lawmakers are being pressured to pass an anti-terrorism bill. President Park Geun-hye on Tuesday also called on the need to expedite that process, stressing that even the IS know that Seoul has no law against terrorism. Song Ji-son, Arirang News.
Now, Brent crude prices have dropped under $40 a barrel for the first time in almost 7 years amid a general collapse in commodity prices. European benchmark oil contract Brent North Sea crude for January delivery slid as low as $39.81 a barrel on Tuesday, the lowest point since February 2009. New York's West Texas Intermediate for January dipped below $40 last week and hit a low of $36.64 a barrel on the same day. A global oil supply glut, weak demand and a strong dollar have sent crude prices tumbling by more than 60% over the past 18 months from levels above $100 a barrel. The American presidential hopeful, Donald Trump, has faced an onslaught of criticism after he called for Muslims to be banned from entering the United States. The White House says the comments have disqualified him from the office of the president. Trump's rivals from the Republican nomination have also distanced themselves from his remarks, which many have called un-American. Democratic hopeful Hillary Clinton also waded in, saying people should tell Donald Trump that hate is not an American value. British Prime Minister David Cameron slammed Trump as well, saying his remarks were divisive, unhelpful and quite simply wrong. The billionaire businessman said this week that he wanted a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the US following the recent mass shooting in California. Now, in some welcome health news, the World Health Organization says the number of malaria cases worldwide has dropped sharply in recent years. In a new report released on Tuesday, the WHO said cases in countries outside of Africa have dropped by about half in the last 15 years. Africa, where the vast majority of malaria cases and deaths are reported, has seen slower but still significant declines of 32% since 2000. The WHO aims to wipe out malaria by 2040 despite not having an effective vaccine for it and increasing resistance problems to both drugs and insecticides used to kill mosquitoes. Malaria, which has killed more than 430,000 people globally this year, is a mosquito-borne parasitic disease that mostly strikes young children. Now, the South Korean military is boosting its readiness to deal with a potential terror attack. They hold regular drills on how to cope with a chemical terror attack, and our Kwani Kim had the chance to go and see one firsthand.
A loud explosive sound signals that this building is under chemical attack. Toxic gas starts spreading instantly, putting the people inside in danger. When the attack is reported to the police, the military's CBR operations team, which specializes in chemical, biological, and radiological warfare, is deployed to the site.
여기 112 경찰서입니다. 터미널에서 화학 테러 의심 상황이 발생하였습니다. 군 화학부대는 신속히 출동해 주시기 바랍니다.
The event isn't real, it's a drill, and it's being used to help train the military. The team arrives in a chemical reconnaissance vehicle and a decontamination truck. After checking to see whether the site has been contaminated, they get ready to execute decontamination operations. Shortly afterward, a support team arrives on site and hooks up a live video feed of the site to transmit images to the Joint Chiefs of Staff headquarters. They also conclude that additional personnel are needed to decontaminate the area. This is when the CBR Special Forces team arrives. The agents enter the building to start their search for the explosive. A robot is sent into the building too, and it'll be controlled by a device set up outside the building in a remote chemical detection vehicle. Once inside, the robot detects toxic gas and moves the suspected explosive away from the building in case of an additional explosion. Once the device is brought outside, agents decontaminate the scene. But the operation doesn't end there. Samples of the contaminant are collected and transported to a mobile laboratory set up nearby. Pollutant samples acquired from the accident site are thoroughly analyzed in this mobile laboratory vehicle, the only kind in the country. The Korean military says the drills will help it be prepared to respond to potential terror threats.
With rising chemical, biological and radiological threats at terminals and multi-use facilities, we will swiftly carry out initial response measures whenever there are terror attacks.
In light of growing terror threats following attacks in Paris, Russia, and Lebanon, Korea's military is also boosting its readiness against potential acts of chemical, biological, or radiological warfare. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Now, imported snacks have been gaining popularity among young and old Koreans alike. They're affordable, tasty, and available pretty much everywhere these days. But a new report suggests that some of these treats might actually have a sting in the tail, more fat than what's listed on their labels. Our Lee Soo-eun has this report.
The label says 0 fat, but you may want to take that with a grain of salt. In a test by the Korea Consumer Agency, 9 out of 60 imported biscuits in the survey actually had more fat than what was indicated on the nutrition label. 8 of the 9 products with misleading nutrition labeling were imported from Asian countries. The biggest difference was found in Ritz crackers made in Japan. The label says the crackers contain 0 saturated fat, but there are actually more than 12 grams per serving. Others include Coffee Joy from Indonesia, which had more than 4 grams of saturated fat instead of the labeled 0, and Dewy Donut from the Philippines with around 1 gram of trans fat, again, not 0. In Korea, a 0 trans fat label is only permitted for products with less than 0.2 grams of trans fat. Experts advise consumers to be on the lookout for these kinds of discrepancies, especially because Korea's Ministry of Food and Drug Safety focuses on filtering out imported treats that use harmful food coloring and artificial sweeteners. But it often doesn't screen for accurate nutritional information and labeling. with Korea's biscuit imports amounting to around $400 million as of 2013. The market is growing. The consumer agency notes that there's a need to strengthen labeling regulations for imported foods, as it's the consumer's right to know the correct product information and make an informed choice that fits their lifestyle. 이수은, Arirang News.
Well, those are stories we're following on this Wednesday morning here in Seoul. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out the website arirang.com/news. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.